Welcome to the Daily County News podcast on YouTube. This is our third episode, so we're just going to kind of slowly go into this. Today we're going to be discussing Family Court Judge at Large Monet Pincus. Now, we've done a few articles in the past about Monet Pincus and her luck at avoiding being held accountable for her actions in these family courts. So, for those who are unfamiliar with South Carolina family courts, or the actual name is domestic relations courts, uh, she is a judge at large who sits in the seat 4, which is Richland County and Kershaw County, but she is also known what they call a traveling judge. She will be going wherever they require a judge for family courts. So, Monet Pincus was placed into judgeship, I believe in early 2000s when a family court judge was retiring. She was nominated and took that spot. And since then, since that very moment, her career has touted so many violations, so many complaints. We were actually present when she was being renominated back in 2002, I believe, 2001, at the JSMC hearing, which kind of surprised us because there were two parents who were speaking out against her renomination. So, the JS hearing, the two individuals, the two parents, who were both fathers, had documentation, got to the podium, presented their evidence, spoke out on Monet, and the panel was kind of shocked that these fathers had such well-documented proof of her violations. And because of the scheduling of them still having to hold other hearings for other judges, they paused this particular hearing, rescheduled it for another date, which was later in November, and told everybody to come back then. It gave them time to review and stuff. Now, the funny thing about this first hearing was Monet Pincus has a habit of sealing her court records after a hearing. This is done usually to prevent people from challenging her decisions because it's become such a nightmare to try to get these documents unsealed. And it's a very costly procedure. So, she actually read from one of the parents' court order that she had sealed, and she was questioned by one of the panel's members how she got access to this document if it was sealed. And her reply is somewhat shocking. She replied that she is a family court judge, that she has access and is allowed to basically pull these documents at her leisure, which is not the case. Even a judge has to go to procedures to unseal a document before she can submit it in any hearings, any procedures, so forth and so on. So this, again, was more proof of her lack of knowledge, lack of professionalism, her feeling of entitlement, so to speak. So a few months went by. The second hearing was held in November. At this point, there were probably about 20 parents, moms and dads, and advocates who had shown up to ensure Monet Pincus is not being placed back on the bench. Well, at the same time, there were approximately the same number of attorneys who were there for Monet Pincus. Now, what kind of shocked us when we looked at the numbers was on one side you had both parents, moms and dads, and then on the other side you had mostly female attorneys, some who have questionable backgrounds. Now, like I just said, that these hearings are meant to be open to the public. Well, the JSMC at this particular hearing decided to keep it closed doors. Everyone was told that they would be allowed in a few minutes, so forth and everything. It was nearly an hour and a half before the doors were open to the public. Everyone piled in. And suddenly, Senator Luke Rankin stated that she was reconfirmed and that they were not hearing any more proof or statements, even after they requested these parents to bring this stuff in. that was the end of it. Now, the odd thing was there was a sitting senator in the room during this whole procedure as well, and who promptly left once the doors came open. So, even though there were objections and so forth, Monet Pincus was reconfirmed by this committee. As most of our stories, we went to the House representatives and senators and asked them, were they aware of this many objections to this particular family court judge's renomination? We found out that in the report that these House representatives and senators received from the JSMC, there was no mention of any objections or any violations on her end. There was simply nothing. That just, they reconfirmed her and that she met all the criterias. So one of the senators that we spoke to, who was the member of the Black Caucus, was very shocked in this and called over to one of the members' offices and was basically put on hold and stated that they were not going to speak to him on this matter. So it was kind of shocking to them that this is the function of the JSMC. So in digging into Monet Pincus's background, she is not new to the adversary aspect of being challenged by parents or by professionals. One of the cases that we were able to pull up was a Jerome Garcia versus Monet Pincus, where she obviously violated his civil rights. You can find this document online. It is a court document, and it went to district court. Now, we read the court, and in the beginning of the court order, the examiner of this recommendation stated that Monet Pincus, at a child support hearing, instructed and denied the defendant, Mr. Garcia, from speaking or presenting any evidence at this hearing. That she simply brought him in, sentenced him, and shipped him off. These are violations of state statutes. Now, Monet Pincus has been a family court judge for many years now, and seems to have always come up short on being able to prove her orders. But she relies on one count, that family court judges have an immunity as long as they're acting in their professional capacity. And in South Carolina, this kind of blankets all family court judges. Even though they screw up and they mess up, these family court judges are not held accountable because they're doing it in their official capacity. This is an aspect of where legislation needs to change. And several legislators are agreeing with this and are getting ready to propose bills to modify this immunity that family court judges have. And we have to remember that the term family court in South Carolina is a made-up term. It does not exist. There is no family courts in South Carolina. These courts are titled domestic relations courts, which are property courts. Their sole purpose is to divide property. Now, when it comes to the aspect of child support, a lot of parents, a lot of advocates will go around and say that they're enforcing outdated and illegal debtors laws. They're putting a debt on an individual, making them pay for visitation, making them pay when they don't have the recourses for it. Recently, we were contacted by a mom who was gracious enough to send us the final court order signed by Monet Pincus, where the income becomes very questionable when it comes to child support. The mom was ordered to pay child support. Now, the father earns over $3,000 a year, where the mom earns below state minimum of $2,000 a year. But yet the mother was ordered to pay nearly $300 and something a month for her one child with this father. There were other aspects to this order that very much questioned it. Monet Pincus ordered that the mother be prevented by court order from posting anything pertaining to the hearings, the individuals involved, on social media, which violates your First Amendment rights. She was also prevented from getting any information on the counseling sessions that this child has to go through, which, again, her parental rights were not terminated, which by state law gives her the authority to get this information. So, Monet Pincus just has this habit of going beyond what she's allowed to do. Like I said, we've covered Monet Pincus several times in articles in the beginning. We always stay up to date on her actions and stuff. And recently, they've been more and more. During this reconfirmation hearing aspect, she was actually put on administrative duties. She was not sitting on a bench. She was put on strictly administrative duties, where again, she took it to a whole new level. This is when cell phones and videos and so forth were being denied in the courthouses, which the U.S. Supreme Court has stated is a violation of First Amendment rights. So South Carolina still has to update their practices in these matters. We will be doing more stories on Monet Pincus, and especially involving this last court order that we were graciously given, and her violations of this mom's civil rights in these aspects. We don't get involved in these things as a he said, she said aspect. It is clear that Monet Pincus feels entitled to go beyond what the law allows her, as long as she has the blanket of immunity under her. But Monet Pincus is not the only family or domestic relations court judge that feels this way. There are several family court judges that feel this entitlement, that don't even give the opportunity for a parent to speak out in court, especially if they're pro se, which is representing themselves. Now, there are several aspects to family courts when it comes to judges like Monet Pincus and several others, is they seem to be in cluster areas. And they seem to be in front of lawyers who they have social ties to and friendships with. At this point, we haven't been able to find any documentation stating that Senator Luke Rankin has been in front of Monet Pincus in a family court issue, but on his business website, as his attorney website, he lists that he has a 99% success rate in court, and he is the head of the JSMC, which selects these judges. Common sense would dictate that this is an individual who you don't want to upset as a judge, because your job depends on this individual. So is it that in itself a violation of ethical conduct, or can it lead into more aspects of favoritism? These are all things that need to be looked at on a legislative level. Family courts, domestic relations courts throughout the country have a motto of best interest of a child. And sadly, very few judges who practice in these courts hold that motto to heart. And it's not necessarily an issue with the judges, it's an issue with the process, the education level that they have to determine the best interest of a child. Currently, there is bills up in the South Carolina legislature to dismiss guardian ad litems, which have no oversight in the state of South Carolina. These are individuals who the court contacts and contracts to be their eyes and ears, so to speak, in child-related cases. They're supposed to speak with the parents, speak with the child, and, do the common sense stuff. And then they're supposed to report to the courts. Well, these individuals are paid by the parents. Okay? So there is always a financial catch to every aspect of best interest of a child. Do you want to get rid of guardian ad litems? It's a hot topic. It's a hot question. Some would say yes, some will say no. It kind of goes on your own personal experience and your own personal ideas of what these individuals are supposed to do. Now, we had the pleasure in another format and another outlet that I work with to actually speak with the judge who created the guardian ad litem program in the very beginning. He was so disappointed at that point and what the program had become. That it became a financial vehicle for family courts. He said his idea was for the people of the neighborhoods where these children were growing up to be able to view and give the court honest assessments of what is involved in the child's life from a day-to-day basis. You know, who takes care of the child more, who does the child feel connected to, these sort of aspects, which are 90% will go with ignored in family courts. Family courts pay attention to financial gain because that is their purpose, you know, to divide financial findings. So we suggest, you know, when we put these articles out, especially on family court judges and family courts and so forth, is for you to do your own research. You can look these individuals up. They're public figures. Uh, Monet Pincus's judicial website on the South Carolina court's webpage has been altered so many times from a good 4 paragraphs to now 1 sentence because of the history that she has developed to the public. Now, as always, you know, you can always reach us during these broadcasts at 803 497 8124. We want to get your guys' opinion on these things. You know, tell us what you want us to start covering. Tell us what you think of these stories that we're doing. You know, should we go more mainstream? Should we be more investigated? You know, we want to hear your guys' take because we know thousands and thousands of our listeners, our readers, our subscribers have experience with these individuals that we cover. So we don't bar anything from the show. Like I said, we're journalists, which are written word journalists, we're writers, and we want to tell the facts only. But that's our take on it. This show actually will allow us to get your guys' take on the stories we write, on the individuals that we write about. So please, go ahead and reach out to us. You know, we can actually schedule, you know, our show is every Sunday at 4 o'clock on YouTube. We post them to our Facebook page. We post them in our website so you can view them. Give us your opinions. You know, our email is open on our website. The phone number is 24/7 that I gave you. There's a phone number on our website even that you can contact. So we just wanted to use this particular episode to kind of give you an idea of a story that we're following on family court judge Monet Pincus. There are so many aspects to these family court cases that the average person wouldn't believe. You kind of lose focus on what is actually important, which are the children in these cases when children are involved. And I think the family court judges, for the majority of them, do the same thing. They've gotten into a routine. They've not understood that these are children's lives that are being affected by their decisions. It is in the many years that we've covered family courts, it is heart-wrenching many times to hear these stories. And then when the children become adults and they reach out and start telling their end of it, it becomes very, very shocking, is the term we'll use. So we hope you guys enjoy this episode. I know we posted the schedule late today. We had so much stuff going on this morning and this afternoon and the time change. So we're going to end now at 20 minutes. If you feel a comment is needed, please comment. Good or bad, indifferent, comment. Subscribe to the channel. We will be doing these more and more as we go on. We're actually debating about doing them twice a week instead of just once a week because we have so many stories lined up now that we're getting ready to put out. Many aspects of politics, of fraud, of public officials not following their oaths. You know, we're not here to tell you what to think. We're here to tell you the facts, and your opinion is what you make of it. So we hope you all have a good Sunday. Please feel free to reach out to us with any questions or comments. We reply to everyone. Um, so that will be it. Look up Family Court Judge Monet Pincus if you have any curiosity as to her background and stuff. Past articles we've done on her court records that she has publicly out there. And make your